Hey Supermoms, we are here today with Susan Barton from Bright Ideas Press. Susan, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So why don't we just get started with you telling us a little bit about your background with homeschooling and with what you're doing right now, education, things like that.
Well, I cannot believe I can say this at this point, but I have a college senior this year who is a biology major. We started out in kindergarten with him being my eldest, and the school system just wasn't a fit for us at the time. We couldn't find a traditional education model that fit what he needed. So we pulled out dinosaurs and books and all sorts of things that little boys love and started kindergarten, and now he's going to finish up that college year as a biology major this year. So that's huge praise. My youngest is a freshman in high school, so I have no littles at home anymore, but such a testimony of what a joy this was. I can't imagine not having my kids, but I really cannot imagine not having this homeschool journey with them either. It's been such a special relationship.
Beautiful. Do you think your relationship would have been different had they gone to a public school or private school?
It obviously, we can always create wonderful family bonds no matter what our situation is. But I think that it certainly gave us much more shared time to know one another deeply, to be friends with one another, to have to be mom and sit down, stern rules with boys. But, we learned one another as human beings in a special way, I think. And so in those moments where mom is having to be the heavy, they understood me so much better as a human that, we could all say, oh, this is really a rough time. Let's all hop in the car and go take a hike somewhere. And we all came back different human beings and
Nice.
um, head down to the creek and come back and feel a little bit differently about lessons. So I
Right.
think it just helped us to understand one another more as people.
Awesome. Relationship is the word that comes up for me. Yeah.
One of the things I try to encourage parents about with homeschooling is that whole um, heart element, that if you've got a heart issue that day, deal with the heart issue before you deal with the academics.
Mhm.
um, I think it's true even among adults that we listen and we receive information so much better if we're not feeling a little angsty at the moment that we're getting it. So when that heart connection's there and we're laughing and having a good time, we're connected, learning is so much easier.
Right. Good point, for sure. So do you have particular memories of homeschooling that stand out to you as your favorites?
I think my boys would definitely share the same one. We were driving from North Georgia, where we live, to Worcester, Massachusetts, which is where we have a large homeschool convention, Mass Hope. And I had several presentations to make. The boys were fairly young, elementary and middle school. So we were driving hard through 12 corners of states to try to get up there. And I said, we'll spend a day in DC on the way back and have lots of fun, but we've got to drive hard and focus on these talks and get up here and do business. And we went by a sign for Hershey, Pennsylvania, and the boys were back in the back seat saying, oh, wouldn't that be cool? I really wish we could go. And they were being so sweet. And I turned on the blinker as I got to the exit, and the whole car just erupted in joy. And we spent the afternoon making candy bars and learning about Hershey's process. And they still remember all the ingredients that they put in their candy bar. And it was just one of those spontaneous moments that if you've got a little bit of wiggle room, you bail on the plan and you pursue delight. And that was one of the more memorable, fun moments for us, I think.
Love it. I think there are probably mothers everywhere going, "Oh, we can do that. We can be spontaneous." And sometimes those are just the best memories and the best moments, and they probably learned a ton from their experience.
We did, but I think that it stuck with them most that they knew the commitment ahead of us, and it just meant so much to them to pause and say, hey, yeah, let's go have some fun together. So
Oh, great. And we can take that lesson and apply it just to into our everyday homeschool life, right? Like, because we got this agenda, we have these things to do, but we come across some teachable moment or something of fun, and we get to do that as homeschool families and in the day to day.
I think that's so key in being a happy homeschool family because I think a majority of our math with fractions and proportions and even adding and subtracting happened baking cookies together, wrapped around the island, having fun. So much of our learning just came from doing life together. So, we have a creek in the backyard and we're down pulling tadpoles out of the creek. Just learning to explore together as a way of lifestyle was, but you have to learn to press pause to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So how do you think their experience of doing that in homeschooling will translate into post education for them?
What I've really seen, and we've made this word so cliche, but if we stop to consider it in its real denotation, um, establishing a lifelong learners is so important. And I think it's really the heart of our end game as homeschool parents. We just lose sight of it in the mechanics.
Mm,
But when you teach your child that you learn by doing throughout the day, that you're learning when you go to the store, and you're learning when you're in the kitchen, you're learning when you're out on a hike together. When you have a mindset of curiosity
mm,
and questioning, somewhere or another, you have that little 2-year-old that's why this and why that and how this and what's this. They're full of questions. They're just inquisitive little machines. And somewhere along the way, with all of the not nows, in a minute, we'll get back to it,
right.
that shuts down.
Mm,
And we really condition ourselves as middle, high school students, and then certainly as adults, to stop wondering and questioning in that childlike way. If you can preserve that and live in a curious, exploring, just observing the world around you, there isn't a day that you won't learn, no
love
matter where you are and what you're doing. So that was really our goal, and being a little bit more laid back was giving enough time to ask those questions.
Mm, that's wonderful. That's beautiful. I love it. Oh my goodness. And the other thing I think I'm hearing is that is the element of fun, like to have the curiosity and have the fun with it. So even as they enter into their high school years, that if they're still maintaining that sense of curiosity and fun and discovery, it sort of can push the drudgery out of the way. And your high school or your college senior, I would imagine being raised in that environment of fun and curiosity, I would imagine that that has extended it through his college career as well.
In such a sweet way, because as a biology major, a lot of his lab classes, even this semester, he has field ecology and stream ecology. So he, by requirement, needs to be out there in those places. But when he and his buddies have breaks in the day, instead of hanging out in a dorm room or in the library, most of them have their hiking gear in the backs of their cars. Andrew's car is full of it. So often they hop in his, but they find a little mountain. Their college is in the foothills of our mountains. They find a little mountain trail and they hit a trail for an hour, and he'll go out. Some moms won't want to hear this. He goes out and catches snakes, and they're looking under rocks and still splashing through creeks, and he's coming home with wet boots at the end of the day. So it never stopped. That same mom voice, it's okay, we're getting in the car because we're all feeling need a little break,
Yeah.
parlayed into what he does now when he has a break in the day. So it's so
Love it. Love it. Well, Susan, it sounds like your whole homeschool experience was just full of curiosity and joy and wonder and peaches and cream. Did you encounter any obstacles along the way? Was there anything that you've overcome in this journey?
I think that by nature of wanting to show the world that we do things well, homeschool moms get in this trap of, presenting all of the best experiences that we have one another with one another. And it's certainly true that I can't imagine having educated my sons in a different way and not have had this journey with them. And I certainly hope that I'm spoiled and blessed enough to have that experience with some of my grandkids one of these days. But um, every homeschool family is going to experience something significant, and even the little things that add up to the significant or feel significant in a given day. But there are going to be moments where you feel like you've hit that roadblock that you don't know how to get over it. You don't know that you'll be able to. And that roadblock for me was that when my young one was 4, my eldest was 11. The 4-year-old is just beginning his academic journey in formal homeschooling. I found myself single again, and I had not been in the workforce for 12 years. And yet I was desperate to continue homeschooling. I loved what we were doing together every day. So I prayed and prayed and said, Lord, I still want to do this. I don't understand. And I don't know how to make this happen. But he did. And he made it clear to me that until he had placed that passion in my heart, and until he removed that from my heart, he made it clear to me that he would make the way. I just had to abide in that.
Mm.
And so year after year, that way looked very different. I mean, right now I'm the chief operating officer for a curriculum company that focuses on homeschool families. There were other years that I ran a kinder music studio, and the boys came along with me to teach music to all sorts of little ones. I taught art at a large co-op. There really isn't a word to encapsulate them, but we had 1,000 students there each week, and I taught art there, and the boys tagged along there. And so every year he made a way for us to stay in what we were doing. And now, gosh, I have this big guy who's going to fly through high school in the next few years, and that journey will have been complete. But I would just hope that moms and dads, when you reach those obstacles that seem insurmountable, that we just abide and wait on the Lord to hear what his direction is, instead of always taking things in our own hands. We're doers as homeschoolers. We make things happen, but sometimes we need to wait on the Lord to find out what he intends to happen for us. It's scary, and there can be a lot of families now that may be facing difficulties with income or physical challenges. A lot of times when moms get into these later stages of homeschooling, we have parents who need our physical assistance too. And there are just so many demands that can pull on a family. But if God called you to this journey, he's going to make the way for you. I can promise that.
That's beautiful. So what does it tangibly look like? I mean, as you've walked that journey, what did it look like for you to wait on the Lord versus just doing it in your own strength? What does that look like for you?
Well, and I think that you're even visibly demonstrating that there's a healthy tension there of God wanting us to step and to do, and to wait on him and know what the doing is. And so I think that's challenging for all of us, to not want to be out ahead of him, but to also make sure that we're being obedient and that we're being good stewards. That's hard. If you've got the answer to that one, I'm going to pause. I'm going to listen to that one. But the real beauty was that, I was a Southern Baptist preacher's kid. And so, some of my earliest memories are bouncing up and down to revival music in our church. And I didn't even realize that when my dad was making those beautiful altar calls that they were for me. I'm like, I'm the preacher's daughter, like that's for somebody else. And then when I really learned, I was young, I was early elementary school, that I needed to make that personal profession of faith. Boy, I had to do it that night. And I found my dad and I said, okay, we're going to walk through this Roman road and go through these verses in Romans, and I need to take care of business here. But that also allowed me, that as I got older, to see the Lord as my daddy. I was close to my
Mhm.
earthly daddy, but I
Mhm.
remember picking up a book one time that had the word Abba in it. And it was the first time, it gives me chills to remember that. It was the first time that I really thought about calling him that. Like he was my heavenly daddy. And I had such a good earthly daddy that to think of him in that way as my daddy was so special. And I was still there as an adult, as a single mom sitting there. There were a lot of nights in a recliner sitting there, tears rolling down my face when the boys go to bed, and you're saying, how do I do this? What is next? But you go back to that initial pull that you felt on your heart and allow the Lord to speak to you. And as long as you are taking enough time to speak with him in a really personal way,
Mhm.
he'll let himself be known. Sometimes he has to say it several times to me, or he may need to use the brick more than the whisper, which I try to avoid. But if we're taking the time to speak to him, but moreover we're taking the time to listen, he won't leave us there feeling like we're stepping on our own. And if we are, we probably do need to wait, because if you're really stepping on your own and you feel that lost, then maybe he's holding you back just a little bit. But he doesn't leave you wanting for
So good.
word from him.
So good. And I think too, what I'm hearing is that I think that we as homeschool moms get so focused on the kids and 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 what's best for the kids, and I've got to do the kids. And sometimes we lose that sense of our own personal relationship with the Lord, which is really what's going to, if we can receive that from him and have that relationship with him first, he'll guide us through the next steps.
Yes,
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's been one of the best ways that I could show. It's hard for a young believer to understand how does God talk to you, and so it's been one of the best ways if we handle faith like we do homeschooling and say, okay, remember this problem? I prayed about it, and here are these simple little ways. You see this that came to us. Do you see this person and how they're relating to us and what they had to say? And they can begin to see those cyclical repeated messages that the Lord uses to get through to us. Sometimes we need to remember as moms to let our children in on those conversations with God.
Yeah. So good. So good. So you have such great perspective that we don't get to hear very often in the homeschool community, and one of them is what it's like to be a working homeschool mom. There are a lot of working homeschool moms out there saying, how do you do this? And also added to that was a lot of homeschool years as a single mom, and there's a community of moms who are single moms, and sometimes those two worlds blend and sometimes they don't. But I'm wondering if you could speak to those women who are hungry and thirsty to hear from another woman who's experienced both of those things. What would you say to them?
Don't feel like you can do all of it perfectly every day. Some days you're going to do one piece really well, and other days you're going to do another piece really well. And when you're at the end of this road with your children, it all adds up to a really good story. And so, it doesn't, every little letter of it doesn't have to be perfect every day. What there can be nights that you're standing around the island having a deli sandwich or a bowl of cereal. As long as everybody's fed and happy, it's really okay that you didn't get, 4 warm dishes put on the table in the evening. But in a very practical sense with teaching, um, finding a balance of really understanding what it looks like to curate education is so important, that we don't have to be the teacher of all things. I really consider us, and this was one of the talks that I think has resonated with people in conventions, because homeschoolers again are doers, and we feel like we need to teach and do and oversee everything. But really, what we need to do is think of ourselves as museum curators, and that we know our children so well from these great relationships and being together day in and day out. We know how they learn best. We know maybe where they need to learn differently and increase some skills. So we know the ins and outs of how they learn and what their goals are in the future. So we're specialists in our children. And if you go out then and find the best option for your child, you're curating their learning experiences. Like I know that when Andrew, my oldest, was getting into those upper level science classes, I loved science too, but I had not studied it in some time. And instead of working through science at an acceptable pace for someone who was a non-science major, I wanted him to have the best. Like he was passionate about this. So we went out and found distance learning that put him in classrooms where he had wonderful professors that taught him to be excited about science in new ways and specialized disciplines. And so really, I would just encourage moms to feel empowered to be that curator, that is still you delivering education to your child, but you don't always have to be the person teaching every lesson. You're finding the right fit for them in each subject.
Nice. That's a good word. So can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and how you're involved with Bright Ideas Press?
I'm our chief operating officer, and I tease people that I put out fires and I play shortstop to our founders. But it's really just making the machine work. We have several series of homeschool, private school curriculum, all Christian based, with a strong worldview that helps me to feel so good about what I do in a day. That every one of those books that I may be focused on getting ink on a page, but I know that at some point a child's going to pick that up and they're going to understand history from the beginning of time and go all the way back to Adam and Eve, which is just, it's such a special freedom that we have in our country and in the homeschool community. But we publish The Mystery of History, which is probably one of our more popular and well-known series. And so we have several series that we've been blessed, have been longtime favorites of the homeschool community. But in the last year to 2 years, we've seen that grow globally. So it's been a wonderful thing to see children in the Philippines and in the Middle East and in Australia and New Zealand come to us, resellers, individual families coming to use the same books that started out in one homeschool mama's living room 25 plus years ago. So,
wow. So what are some other resources that you have at Bright Ideas Press?
we're primarily all curriculum based. We have world history, U.S. history, science, a couple of humanities components, and geography has always been a passion within our company too. So we have one of our newer books in my tenure with the company is a high school geography course, North Star Geography. So just about everything but math and grammar we have on hand at Bright Ideas Press. So we don't offer retail sales directly anymore because we stopped last year and said, wow, we have some retail partners in the reseller community that just do this so well. Family businesses that are out there to serve other homeschool families. So we pass the baton to them. So we're busy writing and creating curriculum and we're letting them sell it. So that's
So where are some places they could find the curriculum that you sell?
Rainbow Resource Center has long been a favorite of homeschool families, and people may remember the great big used to be like this
Huge.
huge catalog. I was so shocked as a homeschool mom the first time it came in my mailbox.
It's like this big.
My goodness, I don't know how they do it. But they're wonderful people, and almost all of their staff is family, extended family. And during all of the busyness of the season, they pull Saturdays and overnighters in there together and have the best time. So they're a great organization where you can find almost all of our things. You can find us at Christian Book. You can find us at our author is Linda Hobar, and she has a website, themysteryofhistory.com. You can find things there. But if you put in a Google search for us, or if you have a favorite reseller that is a smaller family business. Almost all those guys, Miller Pads and Paper, they all carry our resources. So we've been crazy blessed in that regard.
So we could just Google Bright Ideas Press and lots of different.
BrightIdeasPress.com. Yep. And we have a site there where you can click to find a reseller, and it will take you to some of our top resellers there on our page.
So Susan, we could find the curriculum from Bright Ideas Press and all those different places. And I think I hear that you just really have a heart for people who have been in similar situations as you. So there might be a mom listening to this interview saying, oh, I have never even talked to another mom that's experienced what I'm experiencing. And so if someone wants to just reach out to you for an encouragement or just a word from you, how could they contact you?
Absolutely. I so welcome that because we all hit obstacles of different natures and sizes, and if we could all just be human with one another, that I think that's what God really has us on the planet to do. He can do all the conviction and I'll just do the loving. So I'll leave all the rest to him. You can reach me. My work email is susan@brightideaspress.com. But if you have a personal story and it just doesn't make you comfortable to send that to a business email, I totally understand that too. And it is very common for me to receive personal emails from mamas. So the Gmail, which is a little bit easier, is Suze, S-U-Z, Muses, M-U-S-E-S, @gmail.com. So I would welcome mamas who need a handhold in any way.
Oh, thank you so much, Susan, for being here and for being a light. Your Bright Ideas Press is certainly a bright light to so many people who hear what you have to say personally and professionally. So thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for including me and our organization. We appreciate it.
Awesome. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.